I had a theory that the clusters, the people in those clusters, those 4 different clusters, had very distinct behaviors, and that I could use those behaviors to then predict and encourage spending. So that was my theory. That's you start with a theory or a hunch in data mining, and then you ask your data scientists to actually give you the data around that. And what we were using in this particular case is what we call sorting, and something else as well. Sorting is pretty straightforward. It's like exactly what it sounds like. What we're doing is we're looking at a particular cluster. For example, here, the low value cluster, anyone that spent between $0 and $43. What I asked for is give me the most popular products in this cluster, give me the most popular stores, and then give me some insights around the shoe size. And what we found was interesting in that, okay, well, now we know what the most popular shoes were in the low value cluster. It gets more interesting when we move to the next cluster, the mid value cluster. So that's anyone that spent 177 to 237. Straight away we noticed that it was a completely different set of products. So the top 5 products were very different from the cluster before. And in fact, the type of shoes went from low-cost shoe to sandal, flats to sandals. We also noticed that there was a new store that had popped up in the popular stores. So that was already interesting in itself. There were very much distinct types of products that people were interested in the different clusters, which made sense. I mean, people with different spending levels will be attracted to different products. It's quite different to something that makes sense to having the data in front of you and being able to do something with it, and I'll demonstrate that later on. The other thing we noticed is we started seeing a high variance of shoe sizes. So what that means is what we saw was people weren't buying a consistent shoe size. They were actually buying larger and smaller, which we thought, okay, maybe that is because they're buying for other people and they're using their discount. So that was a theory, still a theory at that point in time. But when we moved on to the next cluster, again, completely different set of products. We find some new stores that pop up in the popular stores, in the 5 most popular stores. But what we really noticed in this cluster, people that spend between 346 and 594, that they had a very, very high variance of shoe sizes. So these people were mainly buying for other people. So they had actually very inconsistent shoe size. We came to the conclusion that they're actually using their discounts to buy for a lot of their friends. And then the last cluster just kind of cemented that. What we found is the products that we highlighted in blue were the different products that were popular. So from the high value cluster to the very high, the product set didn't change as much. There were only 2 new products in the top 5. The popular stores were fairly similar, but what we found is that there was such a high variance of shoe sizes that these people were primarily buying for other people and not themselves. And that was interesting because essentially you could treat this particular cluster as a channel. You might be really marketing to you're marketing to one person, but in fact, they're buying for a whole host of people. So really it's a channel. So you should really think about marketing to them differently to an average consumer.